So sometimes it's those little things that we don't pay attention to that hit us the hardest. For many of us, the majority or a significant portion of our net worth, or at least our cash value, is stashed away in our bank accounts. And for many of you, you have no idea what would happen to that money if something happened to you. So we're going to cover in today's video what happens if you're not prepared and how to get prepared for potential disaster. I want you guys to take a moment before we dive into this conversation to support the channel so the channel can keep supporting you. The objective of this channel is to increase your net worth by teaching effective relationship banking, maximizing your borrowed capacity, proper use for life insurance, and how to acquire and own real estate. If that interests you, then please like, comment, share, ring the bell. I'm dropping content multiple times a week, if not daily. Thank you for your support. Let's dive in. So, as a banker on a regular basis, unfortunately, my days are at times riddled with, pretty saddening experiences where I do have to help clients who are coming in after losing important people in their lives, family members, spouses, tragically at times, kids. And I learned through this experience of years of working in this field that the vast majority of us across all spectrums of the income brackets really don't understand how banking works and account types and ownership works in case of disaster or emergency. So the worst case scenario is something happens to you, and if you're the only one on your account and the account's not structured properly, then everything has to go through probate if you don't have the proper documentation set up on the back end and there's no other owners on the account or beneficiaries, depending on your state. That process is pretty arduous, as many things are with the government, and it can be really burdensome for your loved ones who are already grieving your loss, if that comes to that. Or if you have a scenario where you become disabled temporarily or permanently, what happens to your finances? If you don't have the proper structure in place, then you can end up in a financial calamity in the midst of your health calamity. So real quick, I just want to run through how you guys need to structure or set up your bank accounts in order to minimize or outright avoid financial disaster in the midst of other tragedies. Number one, to combat disability, you want to set up power of attorney on yourself with a trusted loved one. What this is going to allow is that person, if something happens to you, which you can structure the power of attorney in that capacity, where if something happens to you, that person can step in and function on your behalf. You need to get this structured with an attorney. Depending on your state, you might need to get it notarized, and then you're going to submit it to your institution where you bank, and they're going to have to put it on file. They're going to verify the documentations and put it on file. Once this is done, this will give you the safety net if something happens in advance where you become temporarily or permanently disabled, where that trusted loved one can step in and help manage your finances and access those funds in an effective way. There are some limitations around this in order to protect you, but at the end of the day, it gives enough access for that person to be able to help pay bills and get money in and out of the account and things of that nature, and function on your behalf. If you were to pass away, or if you are focused on or concerned about another loved one passing away and you're looking for how to set your bank accounts or your relationships up to minimize the headache of accessing the account or funds in the account if something were to happen, you need to do your research on your state, because every state has its own laws. But you either want to set up joint ownership, which will allow for joint survivor. It will allow for survivors, spousal survivor, or joint owner survivorship on the account. It's a lot to get out for some reason. So this basically means that the surviving individual on the account now is automatically in control of all of the funds. This is the most seamless way for this to function. That basically means you guys have to be joint tenants or joint owners on the account today, like now, or at least prior to passing, in order for this to work. But if it does, again, if that happens, then there's no documentation, there's nothing really needed. That person gets to function on with that account, as normal. The next step in line is going to be setting up a beneficiary if the state you're in allows the account. If the bank that you're banking with is following state laws, which of course they are, and those state laws allow them to add beneficiaries on the account, which there's exceptions in a few different states. You have to do your own research with your institution. But setting up a beneficiary, this allows you to keep your account autonomous while you're alive, and if something happens, that person just needs to bring in a death certificate, proper identification, and then they can get access to the funds in the account. The next thing that you can do, if either one of those aren't an option or for whatever reason don't work for you, the next thing that you can do that is effective is to work with an attorney to set up estate or succession documentation, or some kind of trust that will allow for, if something happens to you, to deem somebody else control over your estate, or a trust that basically designates somebody in control over all of your assets or your estate. So joint ownership, joint tenantship, beneficiaries, and or setting up estate, succession, or trust with an attorney. Power of attorney for disability. Put these things in place so you can minimize any strains on your loved one or yourself if you're still alive and something happens to you, in order to minimize the hoops that you're going to have to jump through when you're already in a bad situation or your family's already in a bad situation. I know this content was valuable for you. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Thank y'all for tuning in. I enjoy bringing you the content. I want you to stay focused, stay in motion. See y'all on the next one.